Gemini, this weekend, something you've been waiting for a long time finally happens. Be ready. Take a moment to breathe with intention, not just to fill your lungs, but to prepare your heart, because something long awaited is drawing near. Maybe you haven't been able to name it clearly. Maybe it's felt like a quiet ache beneath the surface, a sense that something important has always been almost here, just beyond your grasp. This weekend, that elusive feeling begins to take shape, and what you've been waiting for, it begins to arrive, not in chaos, not in noise, but in the form of something quietly right, deeply resonant, unmistakably meant for you. You've been patient in ways few understand. You've tolerated almost maybes, delays, detours. But the universe has not forgotten you. On the contrary, it's been weaving something behind the scenes, aligning timing, people, and places into perfect harmony. And now, at last, the curtain is lifting. If you feel this message reaching somewhere deep within you, it's not coincidence. It's confirmation. Like, share, or subscribe if your heart whispers yes. Because this weekend is not ordinary. This weekend, the wait ends, and your life begins to unfold in ways your soul has been preparing for all along. Gate 1, the long wait. Why nothing is fully clicked until now. Gemini, there's something about waiting that doesn't sit well with your nature. You're wired for movement, change, discovery. Your mind spins with possibility, and your heart often leaps before logic can catch up. But lately, even with all your seeking, even with your curiosity wide open, it has felt like something is missing, as though you've been circling the edges of a truth that refuses to fully reveal itself, like an open page that never turns, or a door that almost opens, then stops. You've stayed in places that didn't quite feel like home. You've invested in conversations that didn't quite reach your soul. You've tried to bloom in spaces that never gave you light. And maybe, along the way, you began to wonder, is it me? Am I too much? Too uncertain? Too untethered? But the truth, Gemini, is this. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking for the real thing. And the reason nothing is fully clicked until now is because the real thing takes time. Not just in the world, but within you. You had to become the version of yourself that could hold it when it arrived. Because what you've been waiting for wasn't meant for the version of you who rushed to chase validation, or who doubted their own desires, or who constantly second-guessed the signs. It's meant for the you who now trusts stillness as much as momentum. The you who knows that timing is not about speed, but about alignment. And you are aligned now. Whether you can feel it yet or not, your inner world has shifted. Your soul has softened. The noise has quieted just enough to hear what you've been missing. Yourself. That's why everything before this weekend felt like almosts. Relationships that hovered but didn't land. Opportunities that opened and then dissolved. Moments that nearly gave you clarity, but left you just as foggy. It wasn't failure. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You were being fine-tuned by the universe. Stretched and softened. Humbled and held. Tested not in your ability to achieve, but in your willingness to surrender. And now, that surrender is paying off. Let me tell you about a woman named Mira, a Gemini who spent 3 years waiting for a particular dream to come to life, a creative project she loved, that seemed always just out of reach. Doors would open and then slam shut. Promises would be made, then vanish. She started to wonder if maybe the dream wasn't real at all. But when she finally let go, not of the dream, but of the timeline, everything shifted. Out of nowhere, a message came. A connection was made. And the exact opportunity she thought she'd lost forever returned. But now, it fit. She was ready. She didn't need to hustle for it. She recognized it. That's where you are now, Gemini. On the edge of recognition. The universe is moving something toward you. Not just as a reward, but as a reflection of the person you become while waiting. And this weekend, that reflection begins to take shape. You may feel it as a nudge, a whisper, a sense that something just feels different. Not loud, not dramatic, but certain. And when it comes, you won't need to question it, because your body will tell you first. A sudden calm in the chest. A yes that moves through your skin before your mind even has time to catch up. That's the arrival. That's the beginning. And it's been a long time coming. Gemini, there's something else you need to hear. You didn't miss it. the opportunity, the person, the moment. It wasn't delayed because you were distracted or indecisive or not deserving. It was waiting for this exact version of you to rise into view. And now you're here, rooted, awake, still wildly curious, but no longer seeking from lack. You're finally ready to receive. And the reason this weekend matters is because life is about to show you just how perfect that waiting really was. You'll see it in hindsight, the people who had to leave so new ones could arrive, the jobs that had to fall through so you could find your calling, the confusion that had to clear so you could finally hear yourself. It will all begin to make sense. And when it does, I hope you don't brush it off as coincidence. I hope you stand still in the recognition that your soul always knew. You weren't lost. You were becoming. This is why nothing clicked before. Because it wasn't meant to. But this weekend, something will. And it will click with such grace, such ease, such rightness, that it might move you to tears. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's true. The long wait is over. And the real thing is finally arriving. Not just around you, but within you. Gate 2, the arrival, recognizing the real thing when it comes. Gemini, now that the long wait is behind you, something subtle but profound begins to unfold. Not a trumpet blast or a dramatic sign, but a quiet internal knowing, the kind that doesn't shout but simply is. This weekend, something you've been waiting for a long time will show up. And not just in theory, not as another maybe, not as another almost, but as a real and present moment that holds everything you didn't know you were still hoping for. The question is, will you recognize it when it comes? Because here's the secret about divine timing. It rarely looks the way we imagined. Often it arrives disguised. A conversation that lingers longer than it should. An opportunity that shows up in the middle of your daily routine. A message that lands in your inbox and stops you mid-breath. And when that moment arrives, your logical mind may hesitate. It may say, this can't be it. It's too simple, too quiet. But your body will know. Your heart will respond. Your soul will stand up and whisper, this is what I was made for. Gemini, you spent so much time preparing for big thing. The moment, the change, the breakthrough, that you might forget it's not always loud. Sometimes, the most transformational gifts arrive in a whisper, and your work now is not to seek them, but to receive them. You don't need to chase this arrival. You only need to recognize it. But recognition, real recognition, requires presence. It requires trust. It requires you to believe that your intuition is no longer just a soft voice you silence, but your most accurate compass. And that's something you've spent months, maybe even years, learning to access. Your arrival is not a test. It is an affirmation. The universe is not asking you to guess. It's asking you to feel. And when the real thing shows up, whatever form it takes, you'll feel it not as a sudden surprise, but as a long-lost memory returning home. Let me tell you about Noah, a Gemini who had been seeking clarity about his path for nearly a decade. He kept asking for signs, trying new ventures, meeting new people, but nothing stuck. Until one day, he received a simple voice message from someone he had met once, briefly years ago. The voice said, I don't know why I'm thinking of you, but I'm working on a project that I feel your energy belongs to. Noah nearly deleted the message, thinking it was coincidence, but something deeper stirred. He followed the thread. That message led to a collaboration, which led to a creative revival, which led to a global impact. One message, one whisper, but it was a thing. And Noah only recognized it because he'd finally stopped rushing and started listening. Gemini, this weekend, the whisper is coming for you. And it's not only an opportunity, it's a mirror. It will show you how ready you truly are. You may notice something shift inside, like a sense of completion without even knowing what's ending. Or a sudden urge to say yes to something you would have hesitated on before. Or a peace that settles over you, inexplicably, just before the moment arrives. This is the internal arrival. And when you honor that arrival, the external will follow. But here's something even more important. The real thing may not come with certainty, but it will come with clarity. You may not know where it leads. You may not have all the details, but you will know in your bones that it is right, that aligns, that it moves your life forward. And that is enough. Gemini, don't miss this moment by trying to analyze it into certainty. Don't shrink from it because it doesn't fit the image you once held. Your soul has upgraded. Your desires have evolved. What you truly want has deepened. And so has the way the universe delivers it. You will recognize the real thing because it won't require you to pretend. It won't ask you to shrink. It won't make you feel small. Instead, it will feel like a sigh of relief, a coming home, a quiet yes that echoes louder than any shout. This is the alignment you've been calling in, and it's here. So this weekend, I ask you to pay attention. Be present in the in-between. Leave room in your day for spontaneity. Listen closely to what feels easy, expansive, quietly exciting. Trust your joy. Trust your softness. Trust a magnetic pull that doesn't need to be explained. This is how you recognize the real thing, not because it demands your attention, but because it honors your truth. Gemini, you've waited long enough. The arrival is here. And this time, you'll know. Gate 3, the inner shift, when emotional readiness meets divine timing. Gemini, so much of your life has been lived in motion, thoughts racing, connections forming, questions blooming faster than answers. You're built to explore, to gather information, to dance between possibilities. And yet, there comes a moment in every Gemini's journey when external motion no longer satisfies a hunger for something deeper. When the answers you seek aren't out there, but somewhere quieter, subtler within. That's where you are now. And it's why this weekend matters more than you realize. Because something isn't just arriving around you. It's arriving through you. You're not just being gifted a breakthrough from the universe. You're becoming the person who is finally ready to receive it. And this shift didn't happen overnight. It's been forming quietly over months, maybe even years, through disappointments that humbled you, through choices that sharpened your values, through the long ache of wondering when your time would come. And now, the frequency of your life has changed. You're no longer trying to force alignment. You are aligned. And because of that, what once passed you by will now be magnetized toward you. Not as a reward, but as a reflection. Emotional readiness is often misunderstood. People think it means feeling confident, clear, and fearless. But the truth is far gentler than that. Emotional readiness means you no longer abandon yourself in the moment of opportunity. It means you can sit with discomfort without running. It means you can open your hands, even when you don't know what's coming next, and say, I trust. Gemini, in the past, you may have reached the edge of something beautiful and stepped back. You may have overthought it, delayed it, needed more proof. Not because you didn't care, but because deep down, you weren't sure if you were ready to hold something that real. But this weekend, that has changed. Your inner landscape has softened. Your need for control has loosened. Your heart is no longer asking. When it's whispering, I'm ready, and that whisper changes everything. It's what allows the universe to move pieces you never thought could shift. It's what opens doors that previously stayed shut, not because they weren't meant for you, but because you weren't yet willing to walk through them with your full self. Now you are. This is divine timing. Not because the stars are doing something magical in the sky, though they are, but because your soul has aligned with what they've always been pointing to. The you who doubted, hesitated, ran, is no longer the one answering the door. The one answering now is grounded, aware, clear-eyed, tender. That's the version of you this blessing has been waiting for. Let me share the story of Elena, another Gemini who once told me she always felt out of sync with her own life. Brilliant, creative, intuitive, but perpetually feeling like the timing of things was just off. Then something changed, not in her job or her relationship, but in her. She began to slow down, to stop chasing clarity and instead listen. She began journaling, not to fix anything, but to hear herself. She started setting boundaries, not to push others away, but to pull herself closer. And then one quiet afternoon, she received a message, a long-forgotten contact, offering a partnership that aligned so perfectly it felt surreal. Why now? She asked. The answer was simple. Because you're finally able to hold what you used to reach for. That's the inner shift. That's what this weekend is for. Gemini, as the real thing begins to appear, an opportunity, a conversation, a deep intuitive knowing. Don't ask if you're ready. Know that you already are. The delays, the detours, the disappointments, they weren't proof of failure. They were signs that the version of you required to receive fully had not yet arrived. But now they have. You have. The question now is not will it happen? It's will I allow myself to receive it without fear? Because receiving is an act of courage, especially for someone like you, who has learned to survive by staying ahead, by keeping options open, by analyzing everything before trusting anything. But this shift you're feeling, it's not meant to be analyzed. It's meant to be felt, fully, without edit, without logic, without shrinking. So when it comes, when a message lands, when the right person speaks, when the sensation of this is it wraps around you like warm from the inside out, don't brace, don't question, just breathe, and let your body say yes. Because this weekend, your external world is simply catching up with what your inner world already knows. You are ready for the life you once feared was too big for you. You're not too much. You never were. You were just ahead of your own arrival. And now, finally, you've caught up with yourself. Gate 4, the window. Why this moment won't wait forever. Gemini, what's arriving this weekend is not just a gift. It's a window, a rare, open portal between who you've been and who you are now ready to become. And like all cosmic openings, this one is luminous, powerful, and brief. Because divine timing, as generous as it is also precise. It doesn't linger forever. It visits when the energy is aligned, the lesson is integrated, and the soul has ripened to receive. And then, like breath, it exhales and waits for the next cycle, which means this window you're about to stand before, it requires your presence, your clarity, your choice, because what's coming your way won't beg for your attention. It won't scream, chase, or demand. It will simply be there, quietly waiting to be noticed, like a flower that opens only when the temperature is right. And if you're not present, if you're too distracted by noise or tangled in old patterns, you may not even see it. Not because you're not worthy, but because the window doesn't wait for perfection. It waits for readiness. And you, Gemini, are ready. You walked through too many almost, stayed too long in not quite-its, and outgrown versions of yourself that no longer fit. This moment isn't just your reward. It's your natural next step, but it must be taken. Because the universe can open doors, align stars, and send signs, but cannot walk to the opening for you. That's your sacred task. To say yes, to leap, to allow yourself to be changed by the very thing you prayed for. And here's the truth. You've been here before. Moments when life whispered, this is it, and you heard it, but hesitated. You told yourself it wasn't the right time, that maybe you needed more information, more security, more clarity. And those choices weren't wrong. They were simply part of your preparation. But this time is different. The window that's opening now isn't just aligned with your outer circumstances. It's aligned with your inner completion. The emotional cycles you've closed, the boundaries you've reclaimed, the forgiveness you finally extended to others, yes, but mostly to yourself. And that is what makes this moment unrepeatable, because it matches a very specific version of you. This one, not who you were 5 years ago, not who you'll be 5 months from now. Now, let me tell you about Ari, a Gemini who once let an opportunity pass, not because she didn't want it, but because she couldn't believe she was ready. She said no to a partnership that felt too good, too aligned, too soon. And by the time she circled back, the window had closed, not as punishment, but as movement. That opportunity had gone where it was needed most. And Ari learned something profound in that season. That life doesn't punish hesitation, but it teaches through timing. She said to me later, I didn't lose the opportunity. I lost the moment. And that's what changed me. Gemini, I don't share this to create fear. I share it to anchor you in awareness. Because this weekend, something will appear that calls your name. Not loudly, not urgently, but clearly. A subtle sense of alignment. A moment that just fits. It could be a conversation, an invitation, an idea, a glance across a room. You'll feel it before you understand it. And your mind may try to catch up, may question, may hesitate. That's okay. But your heart will already know. And if you delay too long, If you talk yourself out of what your soul already said yes to, the moment may pass. Not forever, but for now. And now is sacred. The gift of the Gemini soul is your ability to see many angles, to hold paradox, to stay curious. But in moments like these, your gift must be focused into choice. You don't need to choose forever. You just need to choose the next step. The door is open. The light is pouring in. But the crossing? That's up to you. So what does this look like in practice? It means acting on the yes before your mind makes it complicated. It means reaching out when your intuition nudges. It means clearing space in your schedule or your heart for the thing that stirs your soul. It means not deferring joy, not postponing alignment, not waiting for someone else to validate what your body already knows. This is your opening, and it is brief because it is precise. The alignment is cosmic, but the courage must be human. So, Gemini, let me ask you this. If you knew that this weekend held a rare moment, a portal that would not stay open long, how would you show up? What would you listen for? What would you stop ignoring? What would you finally allow? Because the truth is, something you've been waiting for isn't just approaching. It's arriving, and the window to receive it is opening. Just for a moment, just for you. This is the heartbeat between chapters. This is the breath before the leap. This is the yes that becomes your new beginning. Will you walk through it? Gate 5, the embodiment. Living what you've long imagined. Gemini, the window has opened. The signs have stirred something ancient inside of you. The arrival has been felt, not just in your outer life, but in the internal hum of knowing. And now, the final step isn't about chasing, waiting, or asking for more signs. It's about something much simpler, much deeper. It's about embodiment. Embodiment means no longer reaching for the life you want, but living as if it is already yours. Not because you're faking it, but because your inner self already holds it, already trusts it, already breathes as if it's real. This is the frequency that changes everything. This is when the universe doesn't just respond to your prayers. It echoes them through form. You've long imagined what it would be like to be free, to be recognized, to be in a space that finally fits the fullness of your soul. You've daydreamed the conversations, the kind of love that sees you completely, the work that ignites your mind and gives you space to create, the community that lets you speak in fragments and still be understood. You've lived inside the vision for so long that it became part of your inner architecture. And now, Gemini, that architecture is ready to be occupied. This is the moment when the imagined becomes real, not through magic, but through your willingness to embody it. But here's where it gets tender. Embodiment also asks you to let go, to release your attachment to being the seeker, to stop reinforcing belief that everything you want is far away, because it's not. It's here. And living from that truth means doing things differently. You speak with clarity because you no longer fear misunderstanding. You show up with presence because you trust your place. You receive fully because you no longer wonder whether you're worthy. Gemini, you've always been a master of adaptation, but embodiment isn't about adjusting to what's outside. It's about anchoring to what's within. And the version of you that has been quietly forming beneath the surface, they're not tentative. They're not fragmented. They're whole. Let me tell you about Caleb, a Gemini who spent years saying, one day I'll feel settled. One day I'll find my place. Until one day, something subtle shifted. He stopped searching and started practicing. Each morning, he woke up and asked, if my dream life were real now, how would I greet this day? And he lived the answer. He walked like someone who was already seen. He spoke like someone whose ideas mattered. He rested like someone who no longer had anything to prove. And within months, the outer world caught up. The collaboration, the partnership, the space. It all arrived because he was already living it. The world didn't create the life for him. He embodied it first, and the world mirrored it back. This weekend, Gemini, you're being asked to do the same. To stop waiting for confirmation and become the confirmation. To stop rehearsing for the life you want and start living it now. That doesn't mean faking joy when you're tired. It doesn't mean pretending you have no fear. It means anchoring into what you know is true, even if the outer details haven't all caught up. It means breathing with trust. speaking from your inner authority, moving with quiet certainty that you are where you're meant to be, because you are. There's a life already coded within you, a life that doesn't require over-explanation or compromise or constant adjustment, and it becomes available the moment you choose to stop delaying your joy. Embodiment says, I belong to this moment. Embodiment says, I am enough as I am for what I desire. Embodiment says, I no longer perform, I simply exist. And that is more than enough to draw in all that matches me. So as this new cycle begins, as the thing you've waited for starts to unfold, ask yourself gently, what would it look like to inhabit this life fully? What would I wear if I believed I was safe? How would I speak if I knew I was heard? Who would I be if I stopped asking permission to be radiant? You are no longer the person holding the dream like a distant star. You are the constellation itself, the embodiment of a story that was once written in fragments, now complete. Walk like it, speak like it, rest like it, receive like it. The universe has arrived. Now it's your turn to meet it from within. Conclusion, you were never waiting. You were becoming. Gemini, if you felt like you've been waiting forever, for clarity, for direction, for love that feels like home, for a purpose that clicks into place, you're not alone. But here's the deeper truth. You were never really waiting. You were becoming. Becoming someone who could hold more light. Becoming someone who no longer chased love, but recognized it. Becoming someone who doesn't second-guess her worth or shrink to make others comfortable. The stillness, the delay, the ache. It wasn't emptiness. It was expansion. Your life has not been on pause. It's been preparing you for this. For now. And now it begins. The weekend that once lived in your dreams is now stepping into your waking life. The alignment is real. The shift is happening. And what matters most now isn't how fast things unfold, but how fully you show up for them. So breathe deep, Gemini. Let this be the chapter where you no longer wait for permission to step into your joy. Let this be the moment where you stop looking for signs outside and start trusting the ones within. If this message stirred something in you, if a part of your heart whispered finally, then I invite you to anchor that feeling in this moment. Share in the comments. What have you been waiting for? And how do you feel now that you know it's coming? Your voice might be the mirror another Gemini needs. And if you haven't already, subscribe, share this with someone you love, and stay close. Because your journey of receiving, embodying, and expanding is only just beginning. And I'll be here to walk it with you, week by week, breath by breath.